what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it.
You heard Brian Kelly there, that last segment, and I thought that was pretty interesting, Jake, because as I said, that was a very open and emotional and honest press conference from a man who is normally open, but in a in a way that is kind of calculated, right? He will tell you honestly what is going on, but it's normally done with kind of an air of confidence ultimately behind it. That felt like a man at that press conference last night who has put everything into developing this process, right? And that ultimately his process will produce the results that he's wanted. And that last night, to me, that sounded like a man who is having to look in the mirror and answer some very tough questions about, is my process flawed? What is going so wrong, and how we're preparing these guys to end up here again for the third year in a row. He joins Curly Hallman as the only LSU football coaches since 1955 to lose their first 3 season openers in their tenure.
That is quite the stat. I hadn't seen that one just yet. That does seem like somebody that's like, okay, I have been a lot of different places, and every time that we have, installed our process in these places, it has shown different results.
Yeah.
And you can go everywhere that he's been. If I'm not mistaken, year number 3, Notre Dame, I think they went to a national championship game. So right now, year number 3, expectations are up, and it was more of the same. And I think that's the frustrating thing. And look, it's on everybody. Like, it's not just on players. It's on, like, everybody, because that process that they have implemented, obviously, it's something that's talked about every single day. And there's things that have been done every single day to kind of change from what it was to what they want it to be. And that did sound like a lot of frustration of it not fully taking. Like, almost like 85% of it's taking, but it's not 100%, and we need it at 100%.
He sounded a little shook to me.
That's first time I've kind of heard him sound. I mean, he's always been honest. You said that earlier. He's always been honest and open. That's the first time that it almost felt like annoyed.
Yeah, no, like he was kind of out of his normal calm, confident demeanor, and you had a little bit more of you had the kind of mask drop off in some ways. 3 trips into the red zone with 6 points. Do you believe, like, is he correct in identifying that as the key to the kind of key to the game?
Sure. I mean, yeah, it's one. I mean, you get the opening drive, you get down to the 3, you give your team the ability to go for it on 4th down. You don't get it there, and that play never had a chance. And you get down there at the end of the game, and again, we've already kind of talked about it, the 3rd down where Nussmeier wants to call a timeout. He realizes the play is not working like it should in the pre-snap process, doesn't call a timeout, and then the play played out like it did. Like, it without the penalty, it still never had a chance. Like, those are things that are frustrating. But also, like, a lot of people are saying, run the ball on 2nd down, drain some of that clock, or at least, like, make USC use their 1 timeout, and you put the ball in the air. It was a high percentage pass. And it was the same kind of concept that they scored with Aaron Anderson, and let's just call it like it is. Of the entire game, there was probably, 3 passes that were not great passes from Garrett Nussmeier, and that was the one.
It's one that he just buried out in the flats.
You buried as low as away and never had a chance. And if Aaron Anderson catches that, it becomes real interesting to see if he gets into the end zone, and you take another lead. And that's a moment. That's a moment in that game, as well as Nussmeier played, because I think he played really well. Now, they didn't ask him to push the ball down the field, which was surprising considering we have seen him only really push the ball down the field when he's come in. But it was that pass, the concept, and it's a high percentage play. You're thinking, okay, we're going to complete it. How far can we get it? And it's an extension of the run game.
Yeah.
And then you had the worst time to have Garrett Nussmeier throw his worst pass of the game.
Well, and so then do you agree with what Coach Kelly says when he says the other quarterback, outplayed ours? And some will get mad about the coach kind of being that, putting that on a player. And I think those are kind of separate conversations. Like, if you want to have the conversation about should a coach ever do that, or should they just go back to coach speak, it's on me. That's all well and good, but let's examine the veracity of the statement. And unfortunately, even though Nuss came out so hot, it looks so good, I think it is objectively true that Miller Moss outplayed him. When USC had to have the big play, Miller Moss and his receivers consistently came up with it. I mean, the consistency with which these USC players were making these huge catches was something that LSU could not replicate. And the same thing with the huge throws. Miller Moss looked so comfortable in the biggest moments, even to the point where, the awareness at the end of the game, guy jumps offside, didn't know it got a free play, immediately gets just a one-on-one, and then just throw a dime over the top for the touchdown. And yet, as Jake just pointed out, when you had the opportunity to, when you're winning and you gotta have the first down on an easy, short yardage, little flat route pass, you spiked it into the ground. So that I would say I kind of feel for Nuss, because there was a lot of good, but ultimately there was some critically bad that ended up being the difference.
Yeah, look, I want to make sure that I get it out there. Garrett Nussmeier played well. He played well, and he played good enough to win this game, certainly. But if we're looking at the battle between the two quarterbacks, because both played at a really high level, what T-Bob just said is right. Like, Miller Moss had moments in that game where he could have made an excuse of why it didn't work out. And his receivers went up and made plays. You have to credit them. But there's one play in the fourth quarter, T, where LSU dials up the perfect blitz, and Whitweeks gets home, and he's coming like a bat out of hell. And he's basically got almost like his arm wrapped around Miller Moss's right arm, and Miller Moss still finds a way to push the ball through for a first down.
Yeah.
It's those kind of plays that Miller Moss was making in the game. And, I mean, look, he had pressure on him. I thought LSU, actually got after him a little bit, and he didn't allow it. Like, Garrett Nussmeier had a clean pocket all game long. Miller Moss kind of had some chaos around him.
A lot of chaos. He got hit a lot.
And was able to handle it. And, look, there's also something we haven't brought up yet. There's four plays that USC potentially could have had a turnover, and none of them led to turnovers. You had two batted balls that were in the air. LSU players had their hands on them. You had two fumbles that hit the ground, again, because you had great pressure on both those plays.
Yeah.
One of them, Perkins, is so fast to try to throw a little throwback to Woody Marks. He doesn't have time. That ball's on close to being right there on the ground. You had one where they're trying to run a little reverse, probably going to turn into a flea flicker, and you blow it up so fast the ball's on the ground again. It goes their way. So there's four chances with the ball basically in the air on the ground, and they got all four of them.
Well, that's the most disappointing part is that the defense. The defense played well enough to win, man. The defense did.
Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.